Hi, and welcome to another episode of Adding the Alchemy. I am one of your co-hosts, Angie, and I am a board-certified holistic health practitioner with Adding the Good Things.
And I am your other co-host, Angela.
Today, we are going to talk about intuition, what that is and what it's not, and how to cultivate it and bring more of that into your own life so you can powerfully step into that, and also some things that we do that assist us with that process. So to get us started today, I just want to talk about the fact that there are many words that are used for this one thing. And in several of our podcasts, we have talked about words in the English language and how sometimes we only have one word that means lots of different things. And in this case, we have lots of different words that basically come back to mean this one thing. So when we talk about our intuition, it is basically that still small voice that guides us through our lives. And some people might refer to it as your higher self. Some people might refer to it as angels or guides. Some people might refer to it as God. Some people might refer to it as the universe. But basically, this is a voice from the ethers that is guiding you. Okay, it is guiding you through your life and on this journey. And it is a huge part of our healing process and our evolution through our journey. And we must learn to tap into it if we are going to grow and heal and evolve. So I want to give a couple of ways to distinguish what is the intuitive voice or the higher self versus what is not. And I'm going to talk about the ego, the voice of the ego versus the voice of the higher self, and some very specific differences. All right, so the ego is very loud. The ego will yell at you. The ego will be very repetitive and very determined and constantly just pecking at you to get your attention. Actually, it's hard to turn it off. It's hard to not hear this voice. Where the voice of the higher self, or that intuitive voice, is very quiet. It's very small. It's very still. And in order to hear it, you really have to focus and tune into it. Where the ego is just screaming at you pretty much all the time. You don't have to try to hear it. It's always there. The ego is also going to be fear-based. Whatever it's yelling at you about, it is going to be rooted in fear. Where the voice of the intuitive higher self is going to be rooted in love. The motivation of the ego is to protect you. It is always to protect you. It is always to keep you safe. However, it can only operate out of your lived experiences. The ego can only operate out of what it knows that you have been through. So it is trying to protect you based on your past experiences, which is where the fear comes in, because it's like, oh, we've seen this before. We've done this before. Watch out. Watch out. This is scary. Don't do this. Where the higher self, the motivation is for your growth. It is for your evolvement. It is for your healing. And it can operate from an unknown future perspective, because your higher self can see things about the future that your brain is not fully aware of, where the ego cannot. So if you are hearing a voice that is very loud and repetitive and based in fear and basically reminding you of what you have been through before, and you don't want to repeat that from a position of fear, that's your ego. But when you are able to tap in to that still small voice that is quiet, it is rooted in love. It is motivated from your growth and expansion, and it operates from the possibility of an unknown future. This is your intuition. This is the voice of the higher self, of your angels, of your guides, of God, of the universe, of whatever you choose to call it. So I'm going to give it over to you now, Angela.
Okay. Yeah. So intuition is a thing that we all have. And like you said, it's really difficult to hear it when you're not aware that you have an intuition for first, because we always hear about a woman's intuition and all of these things. But I remember hearing about that too, and just being like, okay, well, I guess I'm a woman, but I guess I didn't get it. but men have the intuition too. We all have that little voice that guides us. And when you don't, I'm going to give you an example of hearing that little voice. So, when we go from day to day, like you said, the ego is very loud. So when things are happening in your day-to-day life, and you're fearful, and you're not going somewhere because you're afraid, or whatever it may be. And then I've heard someone before tell me, I get my greatest ideas when I'm in the shower. So think about when you're in the shower, you are not thinking about, or maybe you are, but it's quieted down a little bit more. Whereas that constant fear, that constant ego is a little quieter. So that intuition can come through. Those ideas, those new ideas that you get in the shower is your intuition, you listening to your intuition. I also heard someone before tell me, because there's so many different ways that your intuition will speak to you. Mm-hmm. So I heard someone tell me before that God, their intuition, whatever it is that you call it, speaks to them through music. So they're driving in the car and a song comes on and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the exact message that I needed to hear. And so it was, again, all those thoughts, you're busy listening to the music, and then you hear that message. So this is, when you first start trying to tap into your intuition, it will show in outwardly ways, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. Where all of a sudden you're, maybe dancing and like you hear something in your mind, or you have a thought. There's maybe you hear things, you hear your voice in your head. Maybe you see a certain bird that comes around and is always reminding you of love, or it was someone's favorite bird that loves you, and it's almost like your reminder of that love. Some people get like visions, like see things, how things will play out, things like this. There's so many different ways that your intuition is talking to you. And it's just being able to shut off that voice. And it's really difficult once you start doing the inner work to really start removing all of that internal chatter and all of those fear-based beliefs and all of that. Your intuition will you'll start to see how you can feel differently in situations. I'll give you a personal example. One day I was on my way home and my dad had said something to me about, oh, do you want to stop over? And I don't remember, I think they maybe had some food for me or something. And my first instinct was, no, I just want to get home. Like, I'm tired. It's after work. I just want to go home. And something in my mind was like, okay, well, we'll just go. Like, it kind of was like just a feeling of like, okay, I'm just going to go there. And when I went there, I was standing outside and I saw the highway that I was taking. There was like a huge car accident happening when I was in the driveway, and I was like, I would have been a part of that, or stuck in that traffic or something. So when we say that, like, the intuition is not fear, it was not my intuition saying, okay, there's going to be an accident. Like, we can't go here. You know, what if this happens? What if that happens? It was my intuition kind of just putting me in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that fear-based talking in your face, you know, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. This was just a redirection. So when you say things like fear and love, so that's kind of what I look at as that. You know, it's not, I didn't take the highway. I didn't go to my parents' house because I was afraid of the car accident or afraid to go that way or afraid of anything. I went there because that's just what I was called to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was redirection.
Yes.
I've had so many examples of just little things like this, that before I didn't necessarily know it was my intuition, just things that I felt weird about that I would do, and then it ended in something that was less than ideal for me. And yes, I did learn lessons, and it was a lot of lessons in trusting myself, trusting my intuition, and just that inner feeling. Sometimes it's just a tiny feeling
Mm-hmm.
that you are walking towards, and it's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be a change in direction even, and things like that. So yes, it's once you start seeing all of these things happening, it's kind of like you start to trust yourself a little more and a little more. And, you know, and personally, I think that these, like, if you get like oracle cards, pendulums, all of these different things, and muscle testing, all of these different things can help you start to feel into your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so you use your pendulum and you ask a question that's a yes question. How do you feel with that yes? What do you feel inside of you?
Mm-hmm.
You ask a question that's a no question. What does that feel like inside of you? It's all about what do you feel inside. So yes, you can use the pendulum of the yes or no, but you're not always going to have a pendulum when you come to, you know, something that you need to listen to your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So learning those different feelings in yourself is going to take you really far with
Mm-hmm.
the intuition and building that and cultivating your intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. A personal example that I have, it's a little more broad, but over the last several years of this deep healing journey that I've been on, you know, the process of healing is incredibly triggering. And so when all of these old wounds get triggered, it is initially the ego that is yelling at you. When you feel that trigger and you feel that fear and you feel that that rush of cortisol and hormones and everything that's flowing through your body, and your brain says run, because it's no different than being chased by a bear. Your brain says run. So there have been uncountable moments in the last several years where my brain has said, this is bad, get out, you got to go, get out, this is not good, go, get out.
Yep.
However, the still small voice, the intuition, was very quietly saying, no, this is for your good. This is what you need.
Yep.
This is for this is actually out of love. This is actually how you're going to grow and improve, and this is exactly where you're meant to be. So you sit right where you are, and you sit in the middle of it. And I did, and it wasn't always easy. However, running wouldn't have been easy either. You know, but that happened to me time and time and time again. And each time I chose to listen to the still small voice. And it gets easier and easier and easier. And now I no longer have the ego telling me to run. Even when triggers do come up, they don't come up as often as they did before, but even when they do, it's not it's not the same response. I don't have that voice yelling at me in my head because I have trusted my intuition enough to know that's the voice that I need to listen to, and to be able to turn off that ego a little bit, to acknowledge and say, thank you. I understand that you're trying to protect me. I understand that you are operating out of what we have experienced in the past. However, this is not the past.
Yep.
This is new, and we can operate this way. So thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm going to go this way.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, because if you're, just because something doesn't turn out right, or it doesn't feel good to you, like maybe you have to cry a bunch of tears, that doesn't necessarily mean that your intuition is leading you astray. And I think this is where a lot of people will get caught up in, that is like, oh, your intuition will never lead you into something, totally horrible. Like, will there be tears? Will something maybe bad happen?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, but that does not mean it's leading you astray.
Mm-hmm.
That is for your highest good, and there's something there that you need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really important to understand in all of this also, is it's not always going to feel what we would call good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still the trust and being able to stand in that. And I think that's why it's so difficult for so many people to trust that little voice, because I've trusted that little voice many times and ended up in crazy situations that I learned amazing lessons from. So it's understanding that and trusting that voice and yourself.
Yes, because what is for our highest good does not always feel good. So yeah, yes.
And we have that thought, and we're like basically told that if it's positive, it's probably good. If it's positive and it makes you feel good, then that's the way to go. And yeah, that's to an extent that's true. But when you follow that intuition and it doesn't turn out how you want it,
mm-hmm.
That's part of it too. That's part of the growing journey also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. An example, kind of a more practical example that I'm thinking of right now would be if you have like two different job offers in front of you, and one of them has a very big salary and great benefits, and it on paper it looks amazing, and the other one you have in front of you maybe has a smaller salary and no benefits. And so it looks like you would be going for, well, yeah, we want the money, we want the benefits, go for that, go for that. But that still small voice is saying, but this job is not really going to make you happy.
Yep.
You're going to be fulfilled in this one over here. And on paper, it might not look as good, but it's actually going to bring you more fulfillment.
Yes.
And that's a very practical day-to-day example where that ego is like, money, money, money. I want this. Give me this. But the intuition knows where your actual fulfillment is going to come from.
Yes. It's kind of like your worldly self and your higher self, like having a conversation. They're going, back and forth. We want to feel safe, and this isn't going to keep us safe. Yes, but this is going to expand my soul, and this is going to take me to places where I feel fulfilled. And, I was thinking of something. Why is it that the ego talk is louder? Why is it that, that's so loud and our intuition is so quiet? And what came to me was that, many, 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 many years ago, when we were surviving in this rough world where we had to build shelters and run from animals and, all these things, that ego, that run was way more helpful than that small intuitive hit. Yes. So we have been programmed and trained our nervous systems to make that louder. And I think this is, again, it's the same shift in humanity that I talk about pretty much in all of our podcasts. And, it's the same shift from the ego being louder because we feel like we need to be safe and we need to survive, but we don't really need to do that anymore. This is a whole different world where we can quiet our nervous systems, calm our nervous systems, and listen to that intuition, because we don't need to run from things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't need to do all of that. We don't need to kill our food and run around and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to do those things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So as more and more people wake up to this fact, and as more and more people start to remove all of the things in the nervous system and all of our trauma responses and all these things, that shift will be made, and more people will start to hear their intuition louder. Like now, like you were saying, that you know, you don't really have that screaming ego anymore. I don't either.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, sometimes I do. Like, I'm by no means perfect. I do feel that ego sometimes, but now I trust myself enough to be like, okay, like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're trying to keep me safe. Like you said, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I understand what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need that anymore. I don't need you to to try to tell me what's safe, because I trust myself. I trust my higher self. I trust my intuition, and I'm walking in that path, and it can be difficult. It definitely can be difficult.
Yeah,
It's
it takes practice. Yeah, it takes practice. And I have a few tips that I like to share, some things that work for me. Again, it's very individualized, so you need to find what works for you. But these are just some tips that I can share. The first thing is spending time alone in a quiet place. Purposefully spending time alone in a quiet place. And I know for some people that is much more of a challenge than others. You know, you might have a house full of kids, you might have a crazy busy schedule. I do think in recent years, with the whole COVID thing, we have more opportunity to be alone, as not as many people are going out and going out to work as used to be. So in general, I think most people have more time to do this. I like to get up early in the morning and just have my quiet time to myself very early in the morning. Another thing that helps me a lot is to find an appealing focal point, whether that is a view out of a window. Sometimes I might have like a view of trees and I like to look at the tree line, or it could be the sunrise, or it could be a water view. Another thing that I really like to do is light a few candles and just look at the flame, or a fireplace, and watch that flame flicker. My chart is full of fire, and so I'm very much drawn to that fire. So, or even if you don't have a beautiful scene outside of your window and you choose not to light the candles, maybe you have a some type of wall art that you're really drawn to. Maybe you have a painting that you like to look at, or maybe you have something like we both have behind us here on, you know, just something that is appealing that you can focus on visually. I find helps a lot. And again, this needs to be a consistent practice. You need to make an effort to spend some alone every day in this practice. Now, I am big on Bach flowers and on crystals. So when it comes to tapping into your intuition, there are 2 Bach flowers that I really like for that. I have one of them in front of me here, Serato. Serato, I know you can't see it with the glare, but Serato, it says right here, trust your intuition. This is really good for tapping into that inner voice, learning to hear it, learning to listen to it, and trusting it. Another one that I really like for this is white chestnut, because this one turns off that constant hamster wheel of thoughts that our brain is spinning around and you can't turn it off. White chestnut really quiets the mind. So those 2 flower essences together can help you to turn off that constant noise in your head and to really tap in to your intuitive voice. So those are my Bach flower suggestions. For crystals, I really like amethyst and clear quartz for these two things. And again, for me, they kind of do the same thing as these two flowers. The clear quartz helps to quiet the mind, and the amethyst really helps you to tap into your crown chakra and that intuition. So for me, if I choose to take some time, whatever time I have, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and pick a focal point, make sure I'm alone, it's quiet, pick a focal point, take my flowers, hold my crystals, and just sit with myself. I don't have to have any specific thing. Oh, well, it's, I need to think about this, or, I need to meditate on this. No, just allow yourself to sit and just kind of empty out, be quiet, be still, and just be. And that voice will come through. But again, it takes practice. It takes dedication. It is not something that happens overnight, and it's easier for some people than others. But these are just the things that help me.
Yeah. How I started to tap into this is I bought myself an oracle deck, and I would pick myself a card. I would ask what is the message I need for today? I would pick myself a card, and I would look at like whatever I'm drawn to on this card, and try to think what it could mean to me. And what is the first thing I heard? What do I feel? And then I would read the book and see if they kind of match up. And they usually did. So that's kind of how I started at first. And like looking at the flame and all of those things, it's just being able to shut that mind off. So for me, like dancing was always a good one for me. That was, I always say, like my form of meditation. I tried so hard the form of meditation that people are always saying, like, meditate, you have to meditate. And they, it's kind of like pushed as this, like, everybody needs to do it thing from so many people. And I don't meditate in the way of that, in that sort of way. And I mean, I do like here and there, but that's not the way I hear my internal voice. I tried that. And even now, since I've done all of the healing, a lot of the healing work, and removed all these programs and codes in my system, it's still not the way for me. And that's okay. So I think that's very important, because a lot of people, when you start asking about intuition, they're going to tell you to meditate and shut that. And it's kind of what you're doing with the flame and looking at the, all of that. Like that's your form of meditation. As my form of meditation, I was always dancing, because then I get out of my head and into my body. And that is how you feel your intuition. I listened to this, I don't remember even who said it. It was this talk on Gaia, and they were talking about, it was like a scientist and I don't know, a spiritual person, and they were talking about how your heart actually has a brain of its own, and your heart can actually feel things before you are even aware of them. And so that actually got me thinking about the head and the heart connection, and how that intuition is the heart. So when, it's kind of like, this is a different kind of example, but it's kind of like, if people like have hurt their knee before, and now they can feel when it's about to rain. They feel in their body before it actually comes into their conscious awareness. So I feel like that's kind of the heart thing, and people will sometimes know something's coming, and they might not even know what it is. It's just like, okay, like I'll say before COVID, I remember having this feeling of like, something big is coming. I don't know what it is. I don't know anything about it. I just know something big is coming. And I feel like the world is just going to be completely changed. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm just like, okay, this is weird. And then like, I don't know, a year later, this happened and I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of what it was. Not only for the world, but for myself, because that took me inward and gave me that time at home to sit with myself and deconstruct all of the things that, you know, it was like now I couldn't go out and drink myself away. I couldn't go out and do this. I couldn't go out and do that. I had to sit with myself. You know, so it was just that knowing in my heart that yes, something was coming for humanity as a whole and for me. So that's, you know, the dancing helps me with that, and just that knowing, that feeling. So yeah, it can be difficult, yeah, at first. Also muscle testing to me was kind of a like when your body is always going to go towards a yes and away from a no. And so if you, what is it? You stand to the one I always do is like you stand facing north, and then first of all say yes and kind of notice which way your body sways. Say no, kind of notice what way your body sways, and then ask a question that you know is a yes. See which way your body sways. You know, so that's a kind of another exercise you can do to get familiar with your body and start trusting your body's feelings and all of it also.
Yeah, my process for that is slightly different, but I'll usually start off with a name statement to get my yes or no.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily worry about facing north or south, but I'll just start off with a name statement. My name is Angie, and I should automatically get a yes. If I don't automatically get a yes on that, then my polarity is off. And there are some things that you can do to adjust your polarity. You can tap on your thymus gland right here. This is the easiest way to do it, which should fix it. And then I will always make another statement, a name that my name is not, and say that, and I'm going to get the no. So then I know that my yes is yes and my no is no, and I can move there. Also, I usually try to make statements instead of ask questions.
Okay.
That's just, you know, that's not necessarily, it's just the way it works for me. I try to put it in a statement form, but yeah, there's lots we can do with that. We can do a whole episode on that as well, because yeah, that's a great thing to do for lots of reasons. I did want to touch on you talking about how your intuition comes through when you're dancing. And you mentioned earlier, somebody when they're driving, I've heard as well, like when you're doing something like washing dishes. And I think that's because all of these activities, driving, showering, washing dishes, it's basically mindless activity. You do it, you go through the process, you don't even think about what you're doing, you just do it. And because it's mindless activity, your brain is not so fixed into something that it can't hear that voice. So that voice is able to come through. And you know, sometimes maybe driving shouldn't be such mindless activity, but it really is, because how many times have you made the same drive across town that you've made 100 million times, and you get there and you're like, I don't even remember how I got here. Like, I don't remember this drive at all. Because it was completely mindless. Really, just going through the repetitive motions. You know how to get there, and you get there and you don't have to think about it. Same way in the shower. You do the same thing every time you shower. You don't have to think about it. So yeah, for some people, that is a really good way for those intuitive thoughts to come through. Yeah, so you just have to find what works for you, and you have to practice, and you have to you do have to focus a little bit to pay attention, because the voice is quiet. It's not going to yell at you. It is going to be very, very soft. And so you have to learn to hear it.
Yeah. And even if you can't necessarily hear a voice, because everybody's different and may not hear a voice, but that's, you know, for me, like I had to start with what I felt like. what do I feel inside of me? When I say a certain statement, like, what do I feel like a contraction in my heart? Do I feel a pain in my stomach? Like, what do I feel in my body? And then, once I started removing some of that mental chatter, then I could start to hear things and see things, and all of these things. I do want to tell one very amazing story before we're done with this, but my dog was very sick years ago, and I was so afraid to take her to the vet because I knew something serious was wrong, and I didn't have a lot of money. And I kept asking my intuition, like, should I go? Should I go? And this time, my intuition did yell at me. Eventually, it was like, yes, go. Because for so long, I was listening to that scared voice of like, I don't have the money. I don't, da, 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 da. So I made the appointment. I went to the vet. They told me it was like, I don't know, $1,500 or something crazy like that. And when I was there and I started crying, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay this. And there was a man sitting next to me, and he saw me crying, and he heard this, and he was like, I'll pay your bill for you.
Wow.
And it was like my inner voice yelled at me and said, make the appointment. And everything lined up so that I did, all the worries that I had were all gone now. I mean, obviously I was still worried about her health, but like the vet bill, I didn't have to worry about that now. My intuition was screaming at me at that point, do it now. This is the day, do it now. And everything worked out, and I was scared as heck going into that vet, thinking, okay, all of my savings is gone. I'm gonna have to be paying on my credit card. Like, my life is just gonna be in shambles now. I have no money for this. And it was like perfect timing. Everything worked out exactly as it should.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was just an amazing story for me when I really listened to that voice that was like, do it now. That time it was yelling at me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
Yeah.
love that story. It's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's great. Okay. All right. Well, if you all want to connect with us further, if you want to talk more about how to tap into your intuition, or how it works for you, if you want to share that with us, we would love to hear. Drop a comment below. And as always, we are interested in connecting with you. If you have a specific topic that you would like for us to talk about, please let us know, because we are always looking for new things to share with you guys. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and we'll see you next time.
bye.
Bye.